Tonight's meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. This is a meeting to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act of Ontario. Please keep in mind the intent of this process is to review the proposal that is before us, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the committee, after consultation with the Secretary-Treasurer, will set a new hearing date. No further notice will be provided unless there are changes to the application. In order to conduct an effective and efficient hearing, we have adopted the following process. The owner or authorized agent will be given the opportunity, if so desired, to briefly explain to us the basis of the application, answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for the presentation. You need to state your full name and address for the record. Any material submitted to the committee for viewing will remain the property of this committee. Any submissions beyond 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All persons attending the hearing who wish to support or oppose the application must also state their full name and address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to make your presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chairperson of the committee. Any submissions beyond 5 minutes will also be at the discretion of the committee. If there are several speakers sharing the same view, please select a spokesperson to present the group's opinion. We want to hear your views. However, covering the same points will not advance your case. The owner or agent will then be provided with 5 minutes to respond to the committee or to the comments made by any interested party and answer any questions from the committee members. If the owner or agent has any concerns found in the staff report, particularly any proposed conditions, this is your opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision. This will mark the end of the discussion. Once the committee makes an oral decision, any person desiring a copy must file with the Secretary-Treasurer at the meeting a written request for notice of the decision. A green sheet is provided for this purpose. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on a list that is used by the local planning appeal tribunal for the giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed not later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consents. The owner and the agent, any other person who filed a written request for such notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the local planning appeal tribunal. The last day to appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding. The Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant through written correspondence. People attending this committee meeting are to be courteous and to be respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and other people in attendance tonight. Tonight's meeting will be video recorded and available for future viewing on the town's YouTube channel. We ask that cellular phones be switched off during this meeting as they interfere with the audio system. Thank you. I see we have regrets tonight from Ms. McHale and Mr. Charlevoix. Committee members, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Do we have any requests for deferrals or withdrawals tonight? Okay, I see two hands. Mr. Capper beat you to it, so we'll hear from him first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is David Capper with Glenn Schnarr & Associates. Our mailing address is 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle, Suite 700, Mississauga, Ontario, L5R3K6. We've been retained on behalf of the owner of the property of 123 Morden Road, which is application CAV 157 2018. And through you, Mr. Chair, as of Thursday of last week, we've been working with staff following a discussion with Mr. Hassan with respect to potential concerns that they've raised with respect to our design. for the proposed dwelling. We have worked through a number of revisions to the drawings. And through those revisions, we've actually been able to eliminate the third variance, which is a variance for building height. So the proposed dwelling will comply with the 9-meter maximum building height regulation. We will also be reducing the second variance, which is a variance for residential floor area, to below the requested 40% in variance number 2. And then with respect to this first variance, that is the garage projection, there has been, through our discussions with staff, and I certainly don't mean to speak for staff, but that's been interpreted to be a technical variance to the bylaw. Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could ask for the committee's indulgence, if it is at all possible to have this particular application scheduled for the January 15th meeting, it would be extremely helpful in meeting our client's objectives with respect to constructing. I do realize the notice period for that meeting the notices have gone out, so it would require a motion from the committee members if they saw fit to deem no further notice to be required for this particular application. I'm happy to answer any questions should there be.
Mr. Capper, on what grounds are you suggesting no further notice be required?
Through you, Mr. Chair, there is an elimination of the one variance for building height, and then the variance for number 1 stays the same. That's the garage projection. And then there is, in fact, a reduction in the variance for the residential floor area. Mr. Chair, notice for this application has gone out this evening. If anyone has an interest in this application, it's likely that they are here this evening, and they can be advised of a future date if the committee sees fit.
Mr. Capper, will your drawings be changing with respect to variance number 2 and 3?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, they will be. And I do have a set of the revised drawings with me here this evening. Unfortunately, staff has not had an opportunity to comment on these drawings, so it's an unfair position to put them in to provide any input on those drawings this evening.
Okay. Well, Mr. Capper, I'm advised by Secretary Treasurer that, first of all, January 29th is the first available date that all the materials have been filed for the first meeting in the new year. And I will let the committee comment on your request and move a motion, but it would appear if you're changing the plans, the notice should be given of those plans. A change in those plans could create a concern that someone had with the new plans that didn't necessarily exist. So my opinion, but I'll let my colleagues speak to it. I think you have an opportunity to either proceed tonight without the staff report if it's your intent or your option to do so, or I think a deferral to the 29th would be in order. But committee members, you've heard the request from the applicant for a deferral, request to have it heard on January 15th. Secretary Treasurer is advising that January 29th is the earliest date and that further notice would have to be given. But, I'll entertain any comments or a motion on the request. Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would share your reservations in terms of the potential for impact of changes to the variances, in particular the drawings, and somebody may have reviewed the materials and assessed impact or lack of impact that may change as a result. So I think notification is called for in this case, and we should take the direction of the Secretary Treasurer with respect to the date of availability.
So, can I take that as a motion to defer the application to January 29th and that notice be reissued?
You may.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Any discussion? All those in favor of deferral? Your application is deferred to the 29th and notice will be provided.
Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Marin Zabzuni. I'm the agent for item number 7, 1453 Seagram Avenue. I request a deferral as we're working with planning to make changes to our drawings. We have already removed variance number 2 pertaining to side yard setback, and we've removed variance number 4 pertaining to lot coverage. And we are reducing variance number 3 for gross floor area. So we need a little bit of time to work through planning and come back with a more appropriate application.
Okay, thank you, sir. The Secretary Treasurer is advising again that January 29th is the earliest date, but to make that date, you would need your revised drawings and deferral fee submitted to her in the first week of January.
Yeah.
So we can put it to the 29th, or we can leave the date open.
29th, we already revised the drawings, so we're just speaking with planning. We can make that happen in time.
Okay. Thank you. Committee members, the applicant's requesting a deferral to January 29th.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that the application be deferred to January 29th based on the comments received today.
Thank you. All those in favor of that deferral? Your application is deferred, sir.
Thank you.
We will now hear application CAV A158, 2018 at 131 Douglas Avenue.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Wilmot. My address, the office is 594 Chartwell Road, Suite 3, Oakville. And I am representing the applicant this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Wilmot. Is there anyone in the audience tonight with an interest in this application, 131 Douglas Avenue? Yes. Are you in opposition or support, sir? Support. Did you want to speak to the matter, sir?
Not necessarily.
Okay. All right. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you. Okay, committee members, we've got 2 members of the audience in support. Are you? Sir, can we get gentlemen to come to the microphone and just give your name for the record if you want your support for the application recorded?
Before you do that, Mr. Chairman, I do have a letter from Mr. Dunbar who brought it with him.
Okay, we can take that. Thank you. Okay, committee members, do you wish a presentation on this application? Are you satisfied with the materials? If so, I'd be happy to entertain a motion. Mr. Flemington.
Mr. Chair, having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the application, noting that there's one letter of support that's been submitted and that two letters of support that have been submitted, and that there are no members of the gallery in objection. Also, having reviewed the staff comments, I will find that the application be approved as submitted with the following conditions. The first one is that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site and elevations dated November 14th, 2018. And that the second, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Any discussion on the motion to approve? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve? That is unanimous. Your application is approved, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We'll now hear application CAVA 159 at 450 Wedgewood Drive.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. My name is Bilal Kanani. I'm the agent for the property.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience tonight with an interest in the application at 450 Wedgewood Drive? Okay, seeing none, we will read into the record a late letter of objection that was filed from the resident at 1412 Acton Crescent. Sir, were you made aware of this letter?
Yes, I was aware of it this afternoon, and to answer the comment, Mr. Chair, when we had poured our foundations for the existing building permit for the foundations of the existing building, we had already gone through the process of securing the fence through all the process that was initially submitted to the building department, and we're hoping to do the same thing because we're just going by the same line of the building moving forward in the south.
Thank you. Committee members, you have an interest in a presentation on this matter? Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on this matter. Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having reviewed the staff report, undertaken my site visit, I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the test of the act. Variance, singular, conforms to the test of the act. And I'll put forward a motion of approval, subject to two conditions. The first being that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated November 16, 2018. And the second being our standard condition with respect to the 2 years, the expiration within 2 years. I note that the concerns that were expressed in the letter of objection are resolvable through construction practices and fall outside the scope of what we're dealing with here at the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Any discussion on that motion to approve? All those in favor to approve? It's unanimous. Your application is approved, sir.
Thank you very much.
We will now hear application CAVA 161 at 1125 Lynbrook Road.
Good evening, committee members, Mr. Chair. I'm Graham Barrett, agent for the owners. I'm at 22 Close Avenue, Toronto.
Good evening, Mr. Barrett. Is there anyone in the audience with an interest in this application? Seeing none. Committee members, would you like a presentation? Do you have any questions? If not, happy to entertain a motion. Mr. Flemington?
Mr. Chair, having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the application, noting that there were not any objections presented in letter format or in the audience. Also, having reviewed the staff comments, I would like to move the motion that this application be approved with the following conditions: that the addition be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated November 15th, 2018. And if the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision, if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction, and in cases where a building permit is not required, that the proposed scope of work has not been fully completed.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve? That is unanimous. Your application is approved.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Moving along to CAVA 162 at 215 Morden Road. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Peter Giordano. I'm with David Small Designs. We're the authorized agents, the address 1440 here, Ontario Street in Mississauga. We're the authorized agents for Mr. Bruce Campbell, the owner of the subject property.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience with an interest in this application? Okay, seeing none, committee members, are you satisfied with the materials presented? Any questions? Would you like a presentation? Doesn't look like it. I'm happy to entertain a motion. Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having reviewed the written materials and submissions and having undertaken my site visit, I am satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the four tests of the Act, and noting that the proposed variance will bring the building in line with the general streetscape along the area. And as such, I'll put forward a motion of approval. That motion would be subject to two conditions. The first being that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated November 21st, 2018. And the second would be our standard condition with respect to the expiry of the variance within 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve? It is unanimous. Your application is approved, sir.
Thank you.
Now proceed to application CAB A163 at 247 Dolphin Court. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Council. My name is Robert Hodchak. I'm the authorized agent at the deck store, 454 Self-Service Road here in Oakville.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience with an interest in this application on Dolphin Court? Okay. You have concerns? Okay, so then, sir, we'll ask you to proceed with a presentation to explain your application.
Okay. Our application was based on providing a covered porch area. This covered porch area is in above the rear deck. When we approached this design, we were in the assumption of the old bylaw from the setbacks off of the fence line in consideration to the new bylaw changes, which we were unaware of. I did provide hard copies here, if I can bring up of some of the proposed design, if needed. Also, any obstructions, there is none at all because there are trees covering most of the property lots, and when it will be finished in accordance to what the house looks like.
Thank you. I think for the time being, seeing that there's some neighbors with concerns, you can hold on to that so that the neighbor can have a look at those, and then we'll ask for it to be provided to the committee members.
Okay.
Committee members, do you have any questions for the applicant before we hear from the neighbors? No. Okay, sir, if we could just ask you to take your seat again, we'll ask the neighbors to come up and express their concerns, and we'll give you an opportunity to come back and respond to that.
Okay, thank you.
So if you'd like to come up and speak, we'll get your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Michael Kane. This is my wife Barbara. We live at 246 Albion Avenue, which is directly behind the property. First of all, can I get your names, please? Because we came before the meeting, but you didn't introduce who you are.
Certainly, sir. My name is Michael Tulowski. I am chairing tonight's meeting. Ian Flemington is to my right, and Mr. John Hardcastle to his right as well. We're actually missing two of the committee members for tonight's meeting.
Good evening. The building that's going on in the property behind us seemed normal, but then posts were going up and it got very large, and we weren't sure what was happening in terms of, it looked like a deck, and then it had superstructure on it, and it seems very large now. It's, I think, encroaching on property lines and bylaw and the variances in the bylaws. And we were just wondering and hoping, and our concerns were expressed, that maybe this is just a little bit over the top in terms of our backyard view to this property. So that's all we're here to express is our concerns that it seems really big in terms of our outlook from our perspective in our property, and wondered if maybe it shouldn't be pulled back into proper zoning or whatever you guys call it. Okay.
There's also one end of it that it's started to be enclosed. So without any further information, I came down to Town Hall to look and to see what the plans were. There was no building permit, so there weren't any plans on file. So all we could assume was that this was going to be an enclosed area in addition to this two-story pillars on top of a deck. So I think you can imagine what it's like both internally in our home as well as externally in our backyard.
Bottom line is we object to the way it looks right now because it's already been built.
Okay, thank you. We'll ask the applicant to come back and address your concerns, and I think he does have some plans with him that ideally you have that can go up on the projector. If not, we'll have to deal with that.
I've got a USB cord chip if it helps with that. Yeah, not too. Will it just project off of here? Or? Try it? Okay. Okay. Makes that nice and easy. So this is the actual, This is the actual proposed plan that we've created for this site. It is just a covered porch. There is one wall off of to the right-hand side there, more for privacy off of the fence line. That wall there will be, cladded to the exterior finish, so it does look like a finished area. There is an elevated section that we have proposed to add a little extra sunlight into the house. That might be what seems like it's a little bit taller or the concern. Some of the other concerns, not so much in this scenario, is the site itself. This site is heavily treed, where there's plenty of trees all the way around the perimeter, a lot of growth from the plants. So to address the concern on the sight lines being addressed, we really took that into consideration when we actually started creating this space. These are some of the Google Maps of the foliage. This being the house, as you can see, there's plenty of trees in the area. Same through, I tried to get some angles, but obviously it's limited. Where's my house? I don't know exactly which one is yours, sir, but right behind you. Is this one yours, sir?
Okay, sorry, so we can't have everyone speaking from the audience and you two talking to each other,
Okay,
so you have
my first time doing this, as you can tell probably. Yeah, so I mean, again, there's plenty of foliage throughout this back fence line. And if privacy is a concern, we could always address that in the future. Here's some other pictures from what you would actually see from the deck space. From the street view, very, very minimized. Again, looking out to the street view, again, heavy foliage. Back fence lines, you have these trees in adjacent to some of these homes. Okay, there we go. Perfect. But, again, we're trying to address if we have to add some more plants so it's unsightly or anything like that, maybe we add some trees to accommodate the homeowner.
And for the benefit of the neighbors, can you confirm the covered deck that you're requesting is a permitted use, but it's because of the angled rear property line, the one corner of the deck is coming in at 7.5 meters where the bylaw requires 10.5 meters. So.
Absolutely. When it comes to, in regard to that, it is actually this corner here that is the concerned corner. Everything else abides. It's just where that corner that lies. That's where we're requesting the adjustment for.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, any questions for the applicant or the residents? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the discussion and I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, having conducted my site visits and noting the objection by the neighbor to the rear of the application, recognizing his concern with regards to what was being built there, and I can see from the presentation that it is a porch that is covered, and due to the lot lines and where that is being built, it is requiring a variance to the 7.58 meters. In addition to the presentation, just talking about the foliage, like maybe the applicant can work with the neighbor as far as dealing with some of that. But I think that what has been presented, I am going to find in support of the application, and noting that there are a couple of conditions. So, approval of the application with the condition that the rear covered porch be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated on December 3rd, 2018, and as well the standard condition with regards to the approval expiring 2 years from the date of the decision.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Mr. Hardcastle?
I just, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to just briefly just comment that this is a significant rear yard with a singular pinch point where this covered porch projects into the rear yard, and the intent typically with respect to regulating rear yard is to ensure adequate outdoor amenity area. And given the size and shape of this lot, I'm satisfied that a reasonable outdoor amenity area would be present here without tangible impact in terms of adjacent property. So I'm going to be supporting that motion.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion to approve? That is unanimous. Your application is approved, sir. May suggest that you might want to speak with your neighbors on the way out and just see if there's any remaining concerns that you can help them with.
Absolutely.
Yes, the material you put up on the overhead,
yes.
You'll have to give that to the Secretary Treasurer. Thank you. We'll now proceed with CAVA 164 at 1453 Seagram Avenue. Oh, sorry, my mistake. We'll move to CAVA 165 at 219 River Oaks Boulevard.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Council. My name is George Anzakos. I own 219 River Oaks Boulevard West in Oakville.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that has an interest in this application at 219 River Oaks Boulevard? Seeing none. Committee members, you've reviewed the materials. Are you satisfied? Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, then I'm going to close the discussion and ask for a motion. Mr. Hardcastle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having reviewed the written materials, undertaken my site visit and reviewed the drawings, I'm satisfied that the requested variance to permit a uncovered stair access below grade in the flankage yard is an appropriate variance, and I'll put forward a motion of approval, noting that it does conform to the 4 tests of the Act. The approval should be subject to 2 conditions. The first being that the uncovered access stair be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated November 6, 2018. And the second being our standard condition with respect to the 2-year expiration of the variance. I would note that there were no members of the public present or materials in opposition provided with respect to this application.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, motion to approve. That is unanimous. Your application is approved, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now move on to our final application of the night, CAVA 154, 2460 Applewood Drive. Mr. Barrett, welcome back.
Thank you. Final application of the year.
Final application of the year, and there does not appear to be anybody in the audience.
It's just us.
So, committee, got to be a question for Mr. Barrett to end the year. Seeing none, I assume there's no request for a presentation, so I will entertain a motion. Mr. Flemington.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would like to thank the applicant for making the efforts of making changes in order to appease and bring this into a motion that I am happy to move, having conducted my site visit and reviewing the applications, noting that there aren't any written objections, and noting that there were 7 letters in support of the application. Having reviewed the staff comments and noting that it does now meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act, that it be approved as applied for, with the following condition: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated November 13th, 2018, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction standard condition.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the final motion of the year? That is unanimous. Your application is approved.
Great, thanks a lot. Have a good holiday.
Thank you. Members, we have minutes of the meeting of December 4th. A motion to approve the minutes, Mr. Flemington, and a motion for adjournment, Mr. Hardcastle. We are adjourned.